What happens when four ordinary people living quietly in a retirement village decide to turn their Wednesday coffee meetups into murder investigations? It sounds like the start of a joke, but it's actually one of the most popular crime series of recent years, the Thursday Murder Club. These aren't hardened detectives or seasoned police officers. They're pensioners. Yet somehow they stumble into crimes, secrets, and puzzles that would leave even professionals scratching their heads. And that mix of charm, comedy, and crime has turned Richard Osman's series into a phenomenon. But before we talk about its weaknesses, let's first explore the world that makes this story so irresistible. The Thursday Murder Club begins in a place you wouldn't expect. Not in a dark London alley, not in a tense police station, and not in a courtroom buzzing with reporters. Instead, we're in Cooper's Chase, a retirement community in the English countryside. It's quiet, it's peaceful, and it's full of people enjoying their final chapters of life. Golf, knitting, Pilates, garden clubs, this is the kind of place you'd imagine people go to wind down. But behind the trimmed hedges and the tidy lawns, something far more interesting is happening. Four residents Elizabeth, Joyce, Ron, and Ibrahim meet once a week in a small room. At first glance, it looks harmless. A group of seniors gathering for tea, biscuits, and friendly conversation. But here's the twist. Their club isn't about book reading, bridge playing, or planning community events. It's about unsolved murders. They pore over old case files, newspaper clippings, and records that never found closure. To them, it's part hobby, part obsession. And while most people around them dismiss it as a quirky pastime, this group is deadly serious when they dig into mysteries. The charm lies in how ordinary the setting is. Osman flips the traditional detective story upside down. Usually, crime novels start with professional detectives with badges, lawyers in sharp suits, or hardened journalists chasing truth. Here, it's the people we least expect. People who walk with canes, who complain about hip pain, who forget where they left their glasses. Yet beneath the wrinkles and walking sticks is a sharpness most overlook. Each member of the club carries a past that makes them far more capable than they first appear. Elizabeth, for example, is no ordinary retiree. She once worked in British intelligence. Joyce, who seems like the sweet grandmother type, hides a quick wit and a curiosity that makes her invaluable. Ron, the ex-union leader, brings stubbornness and courage, while Ibrahim, a retired psychiatrist, provides psychological insight into suspects and victims. Together, they form a team that surprises not only us as readers, but also the criminals they go up against. And this setup is clever. It's not just about the mystery, it's about contrast. A calm retirement village becomes the backdrop for unexpected violence. Friendly old neighbors turn into suspects. And people society might consider past their prime suddenly prove they're sharper, braver, and more determined than anyone gives them credit for. That irony is what hooks readers immediately. Because while we start with the assumption that the elderly can't possibly handle the weight of murder investigations, Osman slowly peels back the layers to show us just how wrong we are. The world of Thursday Murder Club is also filled with warmth. Osman doesn't write his characters as stereotypes. Yes, they can be funny, nosy, or blunt in the way only older people can be. But they're also written with respect. Their age is not a punchline, it's a strength. Their life experience gives them wisdom. Their ability to see through lies comes from decades of reading people. Their patience comes from having already lived through so much. Instead of being forgotten by society, they become the most observant voices in the room. And that twist placing, wisdom and experience at the center of the mystery, is what makes this story stand apart in a genre that often relies on younger, tougher detectives. Of course, murder is still murder. And Osman doesn't shy away from the darker side of crime. Even in a cozy English village, greed, betrayal, and violence creep in. Bodies are discovered, secrets unravel. And while the humor softens the edges, the crimes still feel real. That balance between the dark weight of murder and the lightness of human connection is what gives the series its unique texture. It's not grim like Scandinavian noir, nor is it fluffy like some cozy mysteries. It walks a fine line between both, and that's part of its charm. But perhaps the most important thing about this world is how it mirrors real life. The retirement village is not just a backdrop, it's a symbol. It reminds us that life doesn't end after 60, 70, or 80. People still crave adventure, meaning, and purpose. They still want to laugh, to argue, to solve puzzles, to feel alive. And by putting them at the heart of a murder mystery, Osman reminds us that the desire to matter, to make an impact, never truly goes away. This introduction to the world of Thursday Murder Club isn't just a setup for a story. It's an invitation. An invitation to laugh, to puzzle over clues, and to spend time with characters who feel like friends. That's why millions of readers keep coming back. Because while the crimes pull us in, it's the world, this unlikely, eccentric retirement village that makes us stay. What truly makes the Thursday Murder Club stand out is not just the crimes, or the clever reveals, it's the characters. The mystery might be the bait, but the heart of the story is the group of four, and how their personalities blend, clash, and grow. This is where Richard Osman shows his true skill as a storyteller. He doesn't just give us detectives. He gives us people we want to spend time with. Take Elizabeth, for example. On the surface, she's a polite, elderly woman in a quiet village. But anyone who spends more than 5 minutes with her quickly realizes she's something else entirely. Elizabeth used to work in British intelligence. She's quick, sharp, and capable of spotting lies before a sentence is finished. She has a way of taking control without raising her voice, and her past in espionage gives her an edge that no one else in the club can match. She's the kind of person who can talk her way into or out of any situation. Readers adore her because she carries that mix of wisdom and mischief, as if she knows more than she's letting on. In every scene she appears, there's an energy that suggests she might be 5 steps ahead of everyone else, including us. Then there's Joyce, perhaps the most unexpectedly delightful member of the group. Joyce is written almost like the voice of the audience. She keeps a diary, noting down her thoughts in a way that is funny, sharp, and quietly revealing. On the surface, she seems like the typical grandmother figure, kind, chatty, always ready with tea, but her curiosity runs deep, and her gentle questions often uncover truths others miss. Her diary entries break up the story with warmth and humor, offering a perspective that balances Elizabeth's sharpness. Joyce is the kind of character who doesn't need to shout or command the room. She simply notices things, and in mysteries, noticing is often the key. Ron is the fighter of the group. A former union activist, he carries with him a stubbornness that can both help and hinder the investigation. He's brash, outspoken, and sometimes reckless, but he has a huge heart. Ron is the one who doesn't mind ruffling feathers, who isn't afraid to push where others would back off. His personality adds grit to the club, and his history of standing up for people gives him a sense of justice that fuels their investigations. Readers love Ron not just because he's tough, but because beneath that tough exterior is a man who cares deeply about doing the right thing. Finally, Ibrahim, the retired psychiatrist, adds the thoughtful, analytical edge, where Elizabeth is instinctual and Ron is fiery. Ibrahim is measured and logical. He approaches mysteries the way he approached patients, carefully, step by step, trying to understand what motivates people. He's precise and cautious, sometimes too cautious, but his ability to read behavior makes him invaluable. He provides the psychological backbone of the club, always considering the why behind every crime. Together, these four form a cast that is instantly memorable. They're not just solving murders. They're living, breathing characters with quirks, flaws, and endearing habits. Osman doesn't reduce them to cliches. Yes, they sometimes grumble about aches and pains, but more often their age is a source of unexpected strength. Their decades of experience, their ability to remain calm, and their refusal to care about appearances make them uniquely suited to sleuthing. They don't need to chase down suspects in high-speed car chases. They win by outthinking, outlasting, and outwitting, but the charm of the Thursday Murder Club doesn't stop with the four main characters. The side cast adds just as much flavor. Local police officers, for instance, who initially dismissed the group as meddling old folks, slowly begin to realize just how clever they are. The village itself is filled with quirky neighbors, each with secrets, motives, and stories of their own. Every encounter, no matter how small, feels like it could matter. That gives the world a sense of richness, like stepping into a community, rather than just a novel dot. And then, of course, there's the humor. Osman writes with a wit that sparkles on nearly every page. Jokes don't feel forced. They flow naturally from the characters' personalities. Joyce's diary entries are often laugh-out-loud funny. Elizabeth's sly remarks land perfectly, and Ron's bluster adds comic contrast to tense situations. Even Ibrahim's seriousness becomes unintentionally humorous at times. The humor isn't there to distract from the murder, it's there to remind us that life, even when shadowed by crime, still contains moments of joy and absurdity. This mixed sharp wit, cozy warmth, and layered characters is what makes the series so addictive. Readers don't just want to know who committed the murder. They want to know what Joyce thinks of her new neighbor, or how Elizabeth will manipulate a situation, or whether Ron will get into another argument. In many ways, the crimes become a stage for the characters to shine. That's the real secret of the Thursday Murder Club's charm. It's not about shocking twists or grisly details, it's about people. People who feel real, who feel like someone you might know, who remind you that life is still full of surprises no matter your age. The murder is the hook, but the characters are the reason readers keep turning pages. Osman has essentially written not just a mystery series, but a love letter to friendship, resilience, and the joy of refusing to fade quietly into the background. And that is why, when readers talk about the series, they don't just say, "That was a clever mystery." They say, "I miss Elizabeth and Joyce. I want to spend more time with Ron and Ibrahim." That feeling, that longing to return to the company of characters is the mark of true charm. At the heart of the Thursday Murder Club is, of course, the mystery. A murder mystery lives or dies by the puzzle at its center. The crime, the suspects, the secrets, and the eventual reveal. Richard Osman knows this, and he approaches his mysteries not with heavy violence or graphic shocks, but with clever structure and playful storytelling. His goal is not to terrify the reader, it's to intrigue them, to make them lean closer and think, wait, could it be that character, or maybe the other one? Each book in the series presents a murder that feels both improbable and strangely believable. It might begin with the discovery of a body, or with whispers of a crime that has been forgotten, or with a character whose shady past finally catches up with them. Unlike some detective novels that follow a strict formula, Osman allows his mysteries to grow organically out of the world he's built. Crimes happen in Cooper's Chase or nearby not because the author forces them there, but because the community itself, full of hidden pasts, long histories, and unexpected connections, creates fertile ground for trouble. What's fascinating is the way Osman balances two tones at once. On one hand, there is real tension. A murder means someone's life has been taken, and behind every crime lies pain, betrayal, or greed. Osman does not erase that darkness. Yet, on the other hand, he surrounds that darkness with humor, warmth, and humanity. The crimes are treated seriously, but the experience of investigating them feels safe, almost cozy. It's a careful dance. The reader never feels overwhelmed by grimness, but they also never forget that a crime has truly been committed. A big part of this effect comes from Osman's use of red herrings and layered clues. He sprinkles false leads throughout the story, guiding both the characters and the reader into traps. One chapter might make you absolutely sure the killer is a particular character, only for the next chapter to show that your assumption was completely wrong. Yet these twists never feel unfair. He lays enough groundwork that when the truth finally comes out, readers can look back and say, "Oh, of course. The answer was there all along, I just missed it." That's the sweet spot every mystery writer aims for, surprising but inevitable. Unlike some thrillers that race forward with constant action, the Thursday Murder Club takes its time. Osman allows the investigation to unfold with a rhythm that mirrors real amateur sleuthing. The club doesn't have access to advanced forensics or high-tech resources. Instead, they rely on observation, charm, persistence, and old-fashioned conversation. They talk to suspects, they revisit old records, they poke around in places they probably shouldn't. Their methods are messy and unconventional, but that's what makes them compelling. The reader feels as though they, too, are sitting in on the meetings. Weighing the evidence over cups of tea. Another strength of Osman's mysteries is the emotional layering behind the crimes. These aren't murders committed by faceless villains for no reason. There's always a story, sometimes heartbreaking, sometimes shocking, behind why a character ends up dead and why another felt compelled to kill. Osman reminds us that every crime is ultimately about people, their choices, their regrets, and their flaws. The mystery, then, becomes not just about who did it, but about why they did it. That shift adds depth, turning the book into more than just a puzzle box. Still, Osman knows the value of suspense. He often ends chapters with small cliffhangers, a surprising diary entry from Joyce, a sudden revelation from Elizabeth, or a shocking discovery that changes everything. These mini-surprises keep the reader engaged without feeling manipulated. They also help balance the lighthearted banter with the weight of the investigation, so the story never tips too far into pure comedy or pure crime drama. It's also worth noting how the predictability of structure actually becomes part of the comfort. Readers of the series know that certain beats will happen, the group will gather, a murder will present itself, suspects will appear, and slowly the threads will come together. This familiarity creates a sense of reassurance, like returning to a favorite TV show where the formula is known but the details change each time. It's not about reinventing the genre with every book. It's about delivering a dependable but still engaging experience. Of course, not everyone agrees on whether this balance always works. Some critics argue that the mysteries can feel secondary to the character interactions, that the crimes themselves aren't as complex or shocking as in other detective fiction. But perhaps that's the point. Osman doesn't want to write the next Seven or Silence of the Lambs. He's not aiming for brutal twists or gruesome reveals. Instead, he's writing mysteries that invite readers in, that feel like community puzzles solved by people you've grown to love. And that's the unique power of the Thursday Murder Club's mystery element. It gives readers both the satisfaction of solving a crime and the comfort of knowing they're in safe hands. The deaths are real, the stakes are genuine, but the tone remains warm enough that you don't feel crushed by the weight of it all. It's a delicate, balanced mystery wrapped in charm, darkness softened by humor, and Osman has carved out a space in the genre that feels entirely his own. For all its charm, warmth, and clever puzzles, the Thursday Murder Club isn't flawless. In fact, its greatest strength, its balance of humor, heart, and mystery, is also the very thing that exposes its weakness. The series sometimes struggles to decide what it truly wants to be, a cozy hangout with beloved characters or a tense crime novel that keeps readers up at night. One of the main criticisms is tone. Osman frequently shifts between moments of genuine suspense and bursts of comedy. While this makes the series unique, it can also undercut the tension. Imagine a scene where a clue finally points toward a dangerous suspect, the atmosphere heavy, with dread only for the moment to be interrupted by a witty remark or a charming diary entry. The humor is delightful, but at times it breaks the rhythm of suspense, leaving readers unsure whether they should be worried or amused. Another weakness lies in the pacing. With multiple points of view, side plots, and character digressions, the main mystery can sometimes feel buried. Osman clearly loves his characters, and it shows. Joyce's diary entries, Elizabeth's secretive schemes, Ron's bluster, Ibrahim's reflections, but all of this character focus means the murder occasionally drifts into the background. Some readers argue that they don't pick up the series for the mystery at all, but rather to spend more time with the club. While that's not inherently bad, it does blur the line between crime fiction and cozy drama. There's also the question of stakes. Because Osman leans into comfort and charm, the murders don't always feel as shocking or dangerous as in darker detective fiction. The reader rarely fears for the lives of the main cast, and that safety net, while comforting, can weaken the impact of the crime. The result is a mystery that feels engaging, but not always gripping. In short, the weakness of the Thursday Murder Club is not that it fails at mystery, but that it sometimes succeeds too much at everything else: humor, character, warmth. The murder, which should be the core, occasionally becomes just one ingredient in a larger, cozier recipe.